Getting out of debt equals financial freedom. If the rich and wealthy don't have dollars, why do you? You might be thinking they do have dollars. I hear about multimillionaires and billionaires all the time. If they're a billionaire, they have $1 billion. Not necessarily. Think about the case where you hear about someone who is a billionaire on paper, they'll say. Why are they saying on paper? They're saying on paper because they want to confuse you and obfuscate the fact that they actually don't have a bank account with $1 billion in it. On paper means that they have assets. And if the assets were sold, they would turn them into dollars. How does this benefit you? We'll get to that in a second. But again, to follow that analogy, think about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? He will tell you that he has, I think he's a billionaire, or if not, he's close. Regardless, his assets are real estate. Not $1 billion sitting in the bank, real estate. And he'll even say he doesn't hold dollars necessarily. He's into gold and silver and cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. Why? Because he, like us, know that the dollar, because of inflation, loses value constantly. So let me give you an analogy of your own possessions. For example, you might look at your retirement account where you put money into every month, and you might see that the statement says that you have, let's just say, $50,000. What it's actually saying is not that you have 50,000 US dollars in your retirement. It's saying that the value of what's in your retirement account is $50,000. Odds are it's in some sort of an ETF or mutual fund. In other words, you might have sent in $1,000 in the last couple of months to your 401k or IRA or whatever it is, but then it was put into, let's say, a mutual fund. So it was converted into shares of something else. You don't have dollars anymore. You now have shares of something like a stock or a mutual fund. If you were to sell them, they would convert back into dollars. So you might look at your statement and say, I've got this much money. You don't. You're not holding US dollars. And that, because of inflation, is probably a good thing. Think about your car. You might look at your car and say, I paid off my car. That's great. It's worth $10,000. Well, obviously with a car, you know that's not $10,000. It's a car that you could sell and turn into $10,000. So let's talk about your savings. What I do is I look at this, and if you look at this chart from left to right, we're looking at an emergency fund of cash. Well, for my cash savings, I don't have just cash because I know it loses value every day. If inflation's 3% and the bank's giving me 1%, well, I'm losing money, right? You can then move it, going from left to right, is into riskier things, but potentially have better value in the long term. You could rotate into a certificate of deposit. Chances are the bank may or may not pay you more than inflation, so you're just maintaining or losing because of things like taxes. Maybe you get into treasuries and bonds. We talk about those rates, but then commodities, gold and silver. They always talk about them being an inflation hedge. So where I may have some of my savings in cash, I have the majority of it in things like commodities, gold and silver, and crypto. Okay, so let's take a look at this week prices compared to when we first started this basket of goods, as I'll call it. I like to use this particular site because you can see here they've got the gold pricing as well as silver pricing. So compared to when we started back in February, gold is at $22.43 and it was just over 2,000 last time. Silver's up to 25 and last time it was 22. We've got Bitcoin sitting at almost 70,000. We started this, it was 43,000. We've got Ethereum at 3,500. We started at 22.99. Now, why do we look at these things? Because of today's technology, it's much easier. You can go buy physical gold and silver. You can use, and you'll see links below in my description, I use what's called Vaulted, where I'm buying physical gold and silver, but they're holding it for me. But I can easily log in, click and sell, or click and buy. Being able to make your alternative investments liquid is very important. In other words, being able to turn them back into cash when you need is very important. So holding a physical gold bar is a little more difficult to sell because you have to go somewhere to sell it than it is to just sell it through one of these services or hold an ETF of gold. And then for crypto, I think of my inflation hedge crypto. Bitcoin is considered digital gold. I like to throw Ethereum in there. Some people do, some people don't. And then, of course, there's the rest of the cryptocurrency. But in terms of my cash, I look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, gold and silver as my alternatives, hoping that over time they will beat inflation. That's the goal. We don't have new inflation numbers yet for all of February, but these are the inflation numbers from when we started till now. And then let's take a look at the 10-year Treasury, because usually Treasuries will pay the same or sometimes better than CDs, but a lot of people like to look at them for other reasons, such as mortgage rates will follow the 10-year Treasury. So I like to look at that as a barometer as to where rates are headed, either with interest accounts or things like mortgages. So as you can see, at the moment, commodities and other things are outpacing the dollar. So by having it in these alternative investments, I'm not losing value. The cash that's in my bank account is becoming less valuable every single day, every single month. That's why I hold alternatives. I should say this is never financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. I, like everyone, want to make sure I can beat inflation, and the money I worked hard to earn doesn't sit there and lose value every day, because the government's going to print more money and we're going to have to deal with inflation. So consider alternatives to doing that, and we go over this every Friday. Also, take a look at my channel for all of the ways to get out of debt. You can see here, I've got videos on everything regarding getting out of debt, budgeting, then how to use credit cards to your advantage. Once you've paid them off, you might as well use them to your advantage, not keep a balance, but obtain things like cash back, miles, points, you name it. And then I also have videos on investing for passive income. So get out of debt, budget properly, use credit cards to your advantage, and then build your wealth through investment.